All right, Philippe, I'll let you kick it off.
All right, awesome. So yeah, welcome everyone. My name is Felipe from Email Bison. I have more than 10 years of experience sending emails. I had an agency for 6 years, worked at another well-known sequencer for 3 years. I built it from the very first days. And now I'm at Email Bison, trying to see how people can land on inbox.
Hell yeah. Awesome. So in this video, we're going to cover with our expert here, Philippe, everything that you need to know basically to land in the primary inbox, what you should do to switch out your domains, and a few little tactics to make sure that you're actually landing outside of things like inbox placement tests. And so to dive right in, I'd like to start with something that was really popular in 2025, domain masking. Do you think it's really relevant in 2026?
I mean, the concept on itself is still very relevant because at the end of the day, what you're trying to do is humanize patterns. We are testing a new methodology, which we'll soon share if it's making a difference or not. But essentially, like just without sharing too much of the secret sauce, it has to do with the same concept that email masking was meant to achieve a couple of years ago, which is how do we make sure that if a spam list, like let's say Spamhaus and such, checks a link, they feel like this website is meant to be unique. So it's essentially using the same concept. Because at the end of the day, that's what domain masking is all about. It's hiding a pattern where, let's say you're having a couple of hundreds or thousands of domains, all redirecting to one website is not very easily spotted as a strategy for spamming.
Interesting. So with our free clients, one of the things that we do, like as they come in for an intro offer, doing a free campaign, one of the things that we do is we basically just stand up like a clone, so to speak, and give every single domain its own host. Is that a similar strategy in essence, where you maybe vary each landing page slightly to make it so that they can't link them up?
That is a beautiful strategy. It's pretty similar.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Okay.
So I think you're pretty much ahead of the pack with what you're doing. We're trying to turn something like that into a product, or actually,
very cool.
Yeah, into basically what Email Guard does with domain masking, which is the essence. It's just making a website from scratch, and then that's a bit more of an effort. So that's why we want to do it much quicker by just doing domain masking, which is essentially sort of like creating a bypass before the forwarding takes place, right? So it's not as easily detectable. But it seems that Spamhaus and other and other spam filters, they are Mimkaz as well, and those guys, they are catching up with all of these strategies. And as of right now, one thing we're seeing that nobody is talking about, so you're hearing it first in public, is Spamhaus and those guys, they're seeing a pattern right now when you make too many purchases of the same domain at the same time. So they're able, if they see that you purchase 100 domains where they're all pretty much the same, they are flagging all of those in bulk because they're like, this is going to be used for cold email. For sure, there is no doubt for them. They're like, why will somebody buy 100 domains where the difference is try agency X, meet agency X? It's all meant for cold email. And they're doing it randomly, so there's no need to panic yet. But I think it's safe to assume that in a year's time, that whole strategy might start falling.
I mean, I think if we dial back to my video with Cody from 2 years ago, one of the things that I said, which is my basic heuristic with everything deliverability, is what can I do that makes what I do weird? Basically, anything you can think of that even just going back and forth with Claude, what are some things that will make the things I do with my domains, with my inboxes, everything a little bit weird and look just a little bit more normal? One of the things we moved towards was doing more generic domains, for instance, where we don't actually care how branded it is towards the client. And I think that's clearly becoming relevant based on what you're saying. Another thing that I think you can experiment with if you're doing really, really high volume sending is, again, very similar to what you're saying, but if you want to be able to vary the domains, one of the things that you can benefit from is making it so that each domain is dedicated to the segment, right? Yeah. So if you're just going after this one vertical that you are addressing at the given time, you may as well just make a chunk of domains dedicated to that vertical. And it'll also help you isolate, which verticals are harder to deliver to at the end of the day.
Yeah.
You did mention something there that I think is a little bit more advanced. And also, I think you're being a little bit modest. By the way, guys, Email Bison sees some of the highest volume sending across any of the tool providers. It's the go-to for the best operators to send the most emails and actually deliver to primary inbox. So they understand what it takes at the highest level to actually reach the primary inbox and not go to spam. And you really only need to know these advanced methodologies once you're sending at a higher clip. Once you exceed that 1,000 per day, I would say, where you really need to start varying copy, you really need to start thinking about how you're rotating your domains, etc. And we'll get into more of that as we move on in this conversation. But I just wanted to call that out because Philippe was being way too modest. So
I mean,
one of the things...
Just one thing that I want to add is anybody watching this who is not following you is missing out with that.
I appreciate that.
I've seen the last 2 videos that you have posted. One of them where you're helping people on improving their call to actions and lead magnets and such. It was beautiful, absolutely beautiful. And the other one that was literally preparing an entire campaign using multiple products that use an API, including Email Bison, AI Arc, and Cloud Code. And again, same thing. I sent it to a couple of friends of mine who what's funny, like some companies, they're buying Claude licenses to their team members and they are like, go figure out this go-to-market thing. Like, here, go figure it out. And so I'm sending them that video. I'm like, that explains everything you need. Just buy all of these products, get their APIs, and then just follow his instructions.
Get your API keys in the ENV and you're basically good to go. Yeah, I mean, I think my dream outcome with YouTube is to be able to help people run their go-to-market from a / command. That's what I want. I think everyone should be able to do that. 2026 by the end. But to circle back, you mentioned Mimecast, you mentioned Spamhaus, you mentioned Serble, I think. Like, I consider these security gateways. Can you dig into maybe a little bit more? I know Mimecast is a security gateway. Spamhaus kind of is a governing body is the way I would describe it. But can you dig a little bit more into those for people that don't understand?
Yeah, no, absolutely. So imagine it like this. You now own a bank or a school or a hospital, and you have very sensitive information, right? And you cannot afford somebody stealing that information. Meaning you cannot afford having an intern clicking on a random link, and then by clicking on that link, all your 1,000 devices are infected and they're stealing all of your data. You just can't afford it. That would be catastrophic, millions of dollars. So what do? You hire these companies that are called secure email gateways. They usually charge around $10 per email account. So it's a lot of money because when you have, let's say, 1,000 employees, multiply 1,000 times 10, it's a lot of money.
Yeah.
They make big money. And what they do essentially is they are protecting companies from harmful emails, but also from spam. And some of the processes they follow is they look after patterns. Patterns can be copy. It can be the same person sending 1,000 emails to people in their network in a very short span of time. And that's why often when people contact companies like banks or let's say security officers, like anybody that manages sensitive information.
If you're contacting the PCB market, I can tell you're going to run into a lot of security gateways and a lot of gateways you've never heard of.
Yes. Yeah, they're like the Barracuda, Mimecast, Proofpoint, but there are a couple more because essentially not only it's a profitable industry, but also companies, they need them. And sometimes they have like custom requests on how they want to filter emails. So that's why they hire some companies that are not so well known. But essentially, the way these guys are operating is they are trying to play this cat and mouse game where they're trying to see how they can prevent you from landing on the emails. Now, it doesn't mean you shouldn't contact them at all. Like there are some people in our network that actually they encourage people not to contact them so they can contact them and make more money out of those. It just is more tough to crack. It is essentially tougher to crack. So I will say if you have to contact people like companies using security email gateways, and make sure your offer is really good. Like you essentially, you will get good reply rates, and then start doubling down on the fundamentals, like better copy, make it unique, make sure that just put yourself on the shoes of somebody preventing you from attacking them with emails. So try to, for example, humanize the sending pattern. I think that's the key word. How do I humanize the sending pattern so they don't spot me as automating this stuff? And so even the first name and last name, try to make sure it's completely different. Don't try to buy 1,000 mailboxes with the very same first and last name. It doesn't matter if the domain is different. If they see that pattern, they're gonna they're gonna block your email. So
yeah, really good tip. I think the rule of thumb I always give people is put them on the back burner until you figured things out. If you're still in the testing phase, you're not helping any of your testing by sending garbage to security gateways. It's just going to get you flagged quicker and ruin your reputation faster.
Absolutely.
So I think that's a great shout. I mean, one of the things out of the box I love about Email Bison is the moment you upload, you get a tag right on the email on what gateway that they're using. Are they Outlook? Are they Google? It makes something called ESP matching really easy, which kind of leads me into my next question. How relevant do you think ESP matching is outside of it making it easier to assess where you're delivering?
Yeah, I mean, ESP matching used to work really well.
And I'll pause. Sorry. ESP matching means just matching an email sender to another email sender. So you might say you're sending from Google. I want to only go Google to Google or Outlook to Outlook or Azure to Proofpoint, whatever it is. And in the past, there were times when going Google to Google was more effective, for instance. But I'll let you go ahead, Philippe.
Yeah, no, thanks for that. So yeah, that used to work really well 2 years ago, but now we've seen pretty consistently that it's completely random. So some days Google to all, Google will do really well. Next week is Google to Microsoft. So at this point, it is not worth to do ESP matching. It is just better to segment by secure email gateways and non-secure email gateways, and just focus on making sure that the infrastructure you have is like good quality. Good quality meaning Google and Microsoft. As of today, Google is performing better than anything else. But again, things in our space change very quickly. So yeah, like there was like a lot of people using Azure because it was affordable, but it was performing decently well for a couple of months. The things are changing all the time. Now, when it comes to matching providers, it's something I don't recommend. It's a variable that is changing too quickly to try to predict it.
I think on that note, there's obviously differences between Azure, Google, Microsoft, official licenses, and otherwise. When it comes to domains and inboxes, do you think at this point, if you start showing up on Spamhaus, or if you start showing up on these serval checks, or you start noticing your reply rate dip below, let's say 1% human reply rate, or really human reply rate 0.4%, I would say, once you're below there, you're really kind of cooked. Do you think it's worth it to try to recover domains these days, or do you think it's just a full switch over? And maybe get a little bit more nuance there. Like you mentioned, a lot of people aren't varying their domains enough. A lot of people aren't varying their senders enough. Does it maybe come down to little small nuances there on whether or not you should rotate? What are your thoughts there?
Yeah, that's a good question. Look, one thing I learned over the past 10 years is that it's full of gurus, snake oil, and I know nothing. I'm essentially Jon Snow. That's how I embrace cold email. I'm Jon Snow. I know nothing. Nice. Because this stuff changes so much, so often that you just have to be relearning new things.
Every campaign is a new battle of the bastards.
Absolutely. And that's why I'm watching people like you, making content, because you're experimenting things. And then I will also experiment some other stuff and then basically learning, right? So essentially, so that being said, my first answer is test it by yourself. So take what I'm going to say with a grain of salt, but test it by yourself. What I'm doing personally is I am getting new domains and accounts because Serbiel and Spamhaus, they usually give you a very hard time to get removed from their list, and warming up doesn't really get you removed. So I do continue using those domains and accounts for sending because they usually generate a drop of around 30% in your reply rates, which is considerable, but it doesn't entirely cook your infrastructure or your performance. Obviously, it diminishes the quality, but it doesn't absolutely kill, right? So when you start seeing those dips, my recommendation is essentially to buy new domains and accounts while you continue sending with those. And if you are more serious around outbound, you can predict some of it by like some of our best customers, and you probably do something very similar. What they do is something very simple. API endpoint, track bounce rate per email account or domain, actually. Track reply rate per email account and or domain. One or the two or both if you are like absolutely obsessed with it. Because they can be you could get actually an email account underperforming, but some of the accounts between the same domain actually perform well. We've seen cases
100%.
We've seen
it's
that
very
happen.
Strange, yeah.
I don't know how to explain it, but it does happen sometimes. Yeah. And then you combine that with inbox placement tests plus warm-up scoring and spam list checks. If you do all of that and you automate it, and with Cloud Code, it's very easy to do, you will have fantastic auditing process, and you'll be able to flag whenever your accounts or domains start dipping performance. That will be a good signal for you to know that it's either time to rotate your domains and accounts because of certain signals that you're seeing, like let's say Spamhaus or Serbiel flagging you that there is no coming back to that, so you have to switch those accounts or domains. Or maybe just your reputation is dropping a little bit, but it can be solved with like 3 weeks of warming up only. One strategy we're seeing working well for some people in those cases is even having 2 sets of accounts where every 3 weeks they are rotating them. So they're sending 3 weeks and then putting them on pause and then on warm up only and then again attacking. I call it attacking because I like studying Greek battle tactics. And some of the tactics they use is basically resting your troops. You put your troops to rest, so then the enemy feels like it's like they start. You start playing with them psychologically because they feel like your troops are always
tireless.
Yes, you're doing that with them.
We could probably have a long conversation about Philip of Macedonia, Alexander the Great's father, for sure. But to stay on track, to kind of wrap that up into a neat, nice little package, I would say best practice, rotating. And then behind that, once things start to show up on Spamhaus or Serbiel, that's your source of truth of, I really probably need to start considering rotating my domains. And then a step below that, for me at least, we actually find the first place we see a hint of an inbox starting to get a little bit cooked, let's say, is actually that warming score you brought up. We find warming score gets hit before reply rates start to tank. And so once you start seeing a warm-up score of 96, that's usually a really good sign that, or lower, that it's time to start thinking about swapping this domain out or putting it on the back burner and bringing in your stronger domains. But yeah, I agree with everything you said. On that note of these spam providers, you mentioned the dip is around 30%. Do you find that mostly Outlook and Microsoft are the ones that are looking at like those, like are actually referencing Spamhaus and basing whether or not you deliver off that? And who do you have to pay to actually show up in Microsoft inboxes? Do you have a contact?
Yeah, that's a good question. I wish I had that contact. No. Yeah, we do see some patterns. There are definitely some internal alliances between secure email gateways and organizations like Spamhaus. But yeah, I don't know. I cannot remember. I at some point I did hear that some report some data to others and they take it more seriously, but I can't remember exactly how much does it impact on Microsoft.
No worries. Our kind of rule of thumb is to always have Outlook separate, just to be able to see how Outlook's doing on a given campaign. Again, just early on, and even in some cases, we see security gateways outperform Outlook. Just, I would say, as of 2026, it's been a tougher nut to crack.
Yeah.
What I will say is that, I mean, I think we can both agree on this, that the most important thing is the offer at the end of the day. And so I think if your market's big enough, everything you can do before you figure out what is actually going to work or what has resonance within the market, just put anything that's harder to send to on the back burner. I think that's a really, really easy low-hanging fruit best practice. And I think our average reply rates to Google are like 4.6% right now. Google's just really easy to get through to. For the most part, obviously things change all the time. That's the big thing with this. And so varying your copy and especially varying your copy style and trying not to use the exact same fill in the blank templates can usually help. I find my best reply rate campaigns usually involve some sort of stupid joke. And I think that's just because like it's a pattern of copy that almost no one else is going to have. Jokes are typically quite unique to the person that you're contacting. With that in mind, I think one of the things people almost pay too much attention to a lot of the time is their spam checks, to the point where they might make an offer worse to avoid using a certain word. What actually goes into a spam checker? I know you guys have one through Email Guard. It tends to be like our final defense, so to speak. But I'm of the rule that like if you got to say free to make the offer good, just use the word free. What goes into that? Is it guessing? Is it based off your warm-up pool? Like, what makes it such a powerful tool? Because I definitely have noticed that if I leave it alone and I ignore spam words entirely, generally it's going to have a pretty gruesome impact on our ability to deliver, but you can get away with a few.
Yeah. I mean, I think I would like to separate two things. One is how inbox placement test tools work. And second is some of the logic behind email deliverability there. Yeah. So it's essentially Google mailboxes, or just Google and Microsoft, because those are the two guys that control the market essentially. They look at certain patterns, and anything that is non-human, they try to categorize it as such. And that way they can either flag it as a promotional email or essentially spam, right? Well, Google has many other folders, so they're also categorizing emails in those other subfolders. When you are emailing one of those providers, right, they essentially will try to find certain patterns like how often your emails are being replied, how do people engage with those emails, and so on and so on. So it's a very long list. And obviously they will never share it publicly, so it's all a hypothesis, and it's always changing on top of it, because back again to the purpose behind of spam list and all of that, they're trying to protect your parents and my parents from getting emails like your Bank of America password has expired, put it again here and we will change it for you, right? So they're making sure that they're protecting us from the bad guys. And in all honesty, I once met with Google and they literally told me they don't have anything against cold email. They literally told me we send cold emails ourselves, or Google Cloud team sends cold emails to sell our own services, right? So
and they hit you with so many links. I gotta tell you, the Google Cloud
it's crazy.
Sends the worst email. Anyway, go on.
They do. So yeah, they use a different range of IPs for outbound though. That's why they're able to inbox more often than they should. So apparently with Google, when you have like the enterprise plans, you get a different set of IPs than the standard guys. They're very expensive though. But yeah, essentially the way inbox placement test providers work is by using something called seedlets, right? So we use hundreds of email accounts that we use to test your emails against. So you basically subscribe to one of these and you send an email, ideally using the same copy you will use for your cold email campaign. That way we can mimic as much as possible through cold email campaign, because that's a flow with a warm up. Like we're trying to measure performance using the warm-up score. It helps, but since you're not using exactly the same copy and exactly the same conditions, it is basically more prone on landing on the inbox, essentially. Because those are they're trying, like, the purpose behind a warm-up is to create positive signals all the time, right? And the purpose behind a cold email is to make revenue, which is not necessarily always producing positive signals, which is why sometimes you might have to use words like free. Now, just to summarize it all, inbox placement test providers use seed lists, and these seed lists, they need to be rotated. Because unfortunately, those accounts used on the seed list, they start getting trained on certain patterns all the time, and then they start inboxing more than they should. And that's why if somebody built an inbox placement test provider, and this is happening with the current sequencers in this case, there are a couple of sequencers, I mean, I know because I was very involved in one of them, that they do have it built in, but then it's not like they abandon it, but they are not aware of this kind of nitty-gritty.
And they
yes.
Yeah, and the nuances, yes.
Yeah, and they bought hundreds of accounts they use, but they haven't rotated them. And then people complain, why are my accounts performing 100% score on their inbox placement test, but they're still landing on the spam folder? It's because those accounts, they start learning certain patterns and they start getting like a lot of emails, but they're not being flagged as spam. So they start thinking, well, if this person is not flagging
these emails,
you like these emails because you're opening them, you're not replying back, but you probably like them, so we're not going to flag them as spam.
Yeah, that's why my dad keeps getting spam emails about his banking password, because he loves them. He keeps opening them and he never flags them as spam.
Exactly. So that's a little bit of inbox placement test providers. Now, when it comes to deliverability as a whole, and just to finish the idea, part of being human is engaging with emails that seem unique. Like sometimes when you ask somebody to send a true email, and if you use the methodologies that they always teach us for cold email, you will look at that copy and you're like, how is this not landing on the spam folder? He's using opportunity, free, he's putting money signs, he's attaching a PDF file, and he's still inboxing. And it's a complete cold email. Now, the reason why is because there is a pattern there. Maybe that user, whenever he receives those kind of emails specifically, is prone to respond to that. So his spam filters learn how to react and behave with that. So that's why it's good to find certain balance. And at the end of the day, I like to summarize to people. Cold email is like exercising. It's not just, I'm going to eat healthy and I'm going to eat just salads and I'm going to have a six-pack. It's not just, I'm going to go to the gym and I'm going to have a six-pack. It's a combination of so many things. Sleeping, macros, the type of exercises you do, and so on and so on and so on.
I think the number one thing, and I'm going to dial back here because I think one of the questions there got lost probably because of the way I phrased it, but we'll backpedal in a sec. I think one of the things I see the most with people is that they just don't send enough different types of copy, to be honest. I think one of the things that was the most helpful, I got feedback this week, is someone said that all I did was I moved my question, my call to action, to the first line, and then did the whole email the same, just opening with the call to action. And performance went way up again. Another one, someone was sending over 100,000 for like a lending offer. Their PS line was the exact same every time. And so, simple fix, vary your PS line, spin text the heck out of it. I think that's one place anyone can win without it being overly technical. So that's the first place I tell people to go. That said, the kind of core question I had is more around spam checking, not necessarily inbox placement, which I know they go hand in hand, but what actually goes into these spam checkers? Like, is it just going after, I think Google publishes a list every now and again of words to be mindful of maybe. Is it based off that? Is it a mix of that and what you see miss the primary inbox? Like, how do you guys actually build a competent spam checker? Because you see so many free tools out there. What do people rely on?
Okay. Yeah, no, I appreciate that. That's actually a very interesting question. So I actually don't know, because you see a lot of lists out there that they talk about, these are the top spam keywords, right? After this webinar, I'm going to check who was the first person to start with that idea or publish that. Because that's actually a good question. Was it actually officially like one of these ESP providers? Was it Spamhaus? Like, who actually defined that this is a list of spam keywords?
It's hard to know if it's just an echo chamber that tends to happen in the cold email community, or again, if it's a guru that just put it out there to help their tool do better. It's hard to say, but
yeah, it is true. I mean, it's the idea itself makes absolute sense, which is why I'm sure people they use them for building their products or double checking their copy and so on. But definitely spam checkers are much more complex than just keywords. And again, it has to do more with behavior and ultimately how relevant your email is. That is what's gonna make a difference in the next year in the cold email space. Like, it's not just the spam trigger. Of course, one has to be mindful about it, but it is the relevance, like how relevant is whatever you're saying to that person. So if you have to add like the word free in there, so be it, as long as it's extremely relevant to your audience.
Yeah, I can agree more. I think that's kind of the way to do things. At the end of the day, I think if you send a healthy, good message, that's your number one way to win. But I'll say it always goes back to, guy, keep changing that healthy message. Keep changing it as much as you can and not just spend text. Change the pattern, the whole pattern in every way possible.
I've seen some crazy cases of like somebody, being able to inbox because the phone number they were using on the signature, they sending already on like a million emails. And that was the thing flagging their emails as spam. They changed.
Yes, that's what I'm saying. Like a small thing in the signature. Yeah. Almost always, zero signature variation is like the thing that gets fingerprinted.
Yeah. Yeah. So they removed the phone number and they started inboxing. It was crazy. When I saw that, I was like, wow.
That's why I think like you mentioned a really good trick earlier in the video, which I'll double down on here. Just having a bunch of different senders, make up names, make up different types of senders. That can be a really good trick to make it so that you can vary your signature as well, right?
Absolutely.
Sending, I would say also just being careful with the way you use AI a lot of the time.
Yeah.
Another good trick is don't use over presumptive copy, use a curious tone. It's less likely to get negative FUs if you're not making broad assumptions about the person you're contacting.
Yeah.
Another good trick, just little ones that we do. Every time we get a negative response, we show them how to get their email removed from Zoom Info and Apollo just to help them out. That gets you a positive response back afterwards usually. Another small little thing to create more meaningful conversations in the inbox. Every follow-up should have like a cute little compliment about them. I like doing that too. It's not a very salesy tactic, but it helps people respond in a positive tone instead of neutral tone.
Yeah.
But yeah, is there anything else outside of what I've covered here today that you think would be like another small little trick like those that could really help people get an edge?
Yeah, no, absolutely. So before I answer that, this reminds me, there is one client, the email outreach company. Those guys, they put on the signature that even if they're not interested, if they respond back to emails, they will donate some dog food to a dog shelter. And it works.
Genius.
It works really well. And they actually do. They do donate. And some people are like, yeah, right, send me proof. And he actually sends them proof. He's like, here's the picture. So yeah. So he continues the engagement with certain people. So
that is absolutely genius. Absolutely genius. It's like an incentive campaign, but without making it about the incentive.
Yeah. Yeah. No, and the guy is happy to do it. He's not just doing it for the sake of like, I'm improving my reply rates, but he just loves sending it. So that's why.
Yeah. I mean, it doesn't matter if he likes it or not. It's all about the reply. No, I'm just kidding. That's a good little trick though. And also like, I think that goes for anything. Like when I think Nick Abraham was the real inspiration for this actually, is like, if you go to try to get a consult with Nick, his reply will be the same every time. It's like, pick a charity. Pick a charity, and that's where you got to send the money, send the proof, and then I'll hop on with you for 30 minutes. And I think nothing beats that good karma. Like forget landing in the inbox. The good karma is going to make sure that you get the best deals at the other end. I'm sure.
No, that is true. It is true, man. Like, Clay is going to organize an event like Skull by Clay, and we're going to organize like a private event before the actual event with a couple of friends. And I've been emailing like a couple of people. And I don't know, like I try to help people, like generally try to help people without trying to get anything back. And they're like, when I email them, they're like, I'm going, and they buy their tickets, they're playing. And I'm just checking on them if they were actually planning on coming, but just because they hear I'm going and I tell them all this private event, I'm not even inviting them, but they're like, I'm going, you are inviting me now. Boom, 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 boom. And all of a sudden, like I'm just getting like, I don't know, Adam Robinson is now coming. And he even wants to sponsor it. He's like, I want to sponsor, I want to help you organize it. I'm like, all right, sure.
That's incredible, man. Dude, goodwill, just being a good person goes a long way. I think like if anyone wants to learn from someone on what that looks like, I think Kellen K. Spear is like one of the biggest givers in the entire space.
I absolutely love that guy. Like hands down. Like I'll do anything for that guy. Like if he emails me, asks me for anything, I'll do anything for that guy.
100%. I totally agree. Like I think one conversation with him at the end of last year completely changed my outlook on just everything to do with running a cold email agency. And then just watching him build Go-to-Market Cafe and just show up week in, week. He missed 1 week out of like 2 years or something building this community. And he's never asked for anything. He's never tried to sell out in any way. Yeah. Just kept it true to its name. Yeah. Man, I'll tell you what. With that level of goodwill, I wouldn't be surprised if it's impossible for him to miss the primary inbox just because Google sees his name and it goes, this is the most positive sentiment name they have indexed on the entire internet.
I mean, you never know. You just never know. It's all gonna keep changing always and forever. So yeah. But yeah, just to answer your question around like, what people could be doing differently. You're probably doing a lot of this stuff already. So maybe to you it might not be really relevant, but I think I can reinforce enough of how easy it is to build a tracking auditing system by just using the API endpoints of bounce rate, reply rate. Just those two. Literally those two can already tell you a lot. And then you track the performance of your accounts because they are indirectly proportional, meaning if the bounce rate goes up and the reply goes down, it means the account is dying, essentially. So it's very easy. And then you combine it with the warm-up score. We do see a dip on warm-up for certain spam filters. They do affect heavily the warm-up for some reason. Can't remember exactly which ones are those, but there are a few. And then obviously combine it with what I said, like the inbox placement test, use the API, one of those, and then you run a test once per month. And that's it. Like you will have a bulletproof system. And on top of it all, API for any inbox reseller, and you automate the entire system. So you create like some sort of conditions where if, let's say you're flagged by Spamhaus or SorBL, make a purchase immediately, replace it, then after a couple of weeks, just remove the accounts, cancel them. So you create this motion that is always keeping your engine healthy. And at the same time, check my deliverability. If no problems with Spamhaus or SorBL, just put these accounts on warm-up only. And you can automate all of that. And then you literally have a system that takes care of its own. I think that could make such a big difference for a lot of people. So you don't have to be stressing about like checking on your infrastructure, changing accounts, buying new domains, that you just focus on the ops of your business.
Yeah, one of the hardest things is just to keep sending, or it used to be up until systems like the ones you just described. And if anyone needs it, there's a free open source email Bison CLI on my website. Just grab it, leadgrow.ai/cloud It can help you with a lot of the things you just described by giving you an understanding of the way their API works out of the box in a palatable way for Cloud Code. And one thing I actually totally missed as a question here. Last year, 2025, I feel like what was the big thing in 2025 for deliverability? It was aged domains and pre-warmed inboxes. I have mixed feelings about this personally, but I'd love to hear your take.
Well, they sell like hot bread. I can tell you that. They sell really well. You know, the company I was at before, they were getting sold out very often. Now, they don't last too long. That's the problem. It's a temporary solution for a deeper problem or issue. So I definitely think that they help for like proving other stuff. Like for example, you can very quickly check if you have the right copy or product marketer or whatever. But if they get burned very quickly, it means there are things you need to fix. Maybe your targeting, maybe the way you phrase your call to action, maybe your offer on its own needs to be changed.
Maybe use separate inboxes for sending to catch-all.
Yeah.
A whole bunch of little tricks for sure.
Yeah,
okay.
Absolutely.
I think like my take on it is that you should almost always just do it yourself because you don't know the history of the domain that you're picking up typically from these pre-warming providers because they don't usually list all the domains in my experience. So I think good trick, always better to warm longer. And the more you can control the process, the happier you'll be with the outcome. And like Philippe said, the more you can test yourself.
One more thing to add there is that good providers are very rare. And this is going to hurt a lot of people, but it is unfortunate reality. A lot of providers were using educational panels or legacy panels, and they were selling them to you as like legitimate Google accounts and so on.
Not for profit was a big trend. There was education panels, all sorts of things.
Yeah, and those were almost free, right? So they were like profiting like crazy with those accounts. Now, when it comes to providers, you know, I'll be picky on who you work with. A lot of them, they will promise you like magical results, and they will like claim US IPs, and they will claim like crazy stuff. So I think like best is just to test until you find one that can consistently deliver, that they're very transparent. And unfortunately, when it comes to the pre-warm accounts, like the reason why I'm mentioning it like this is because of the main question. I heard that some of these providers, they use domains that they already sold to someone else, and then they, cancel their account. So now they have the domain, which is not burned, and then they put it for, as a pre-warm account, essentially. So the domain effectively has been pre-warmed, but it was used before by someone else. So it's a very smart way of like
pre-warmed or pre-ruined, it could be.
Yes.
I guess it's all just marketing, eh?
Yeah, exactly. So to truly know who somebody's selling you a pre-warm and not a pre-ruined domain, you have to trust your reseller there.
100%. Okay, perfect. Yeah, I mean, I think that's it for me. One of the cool things about Bison, just from my end, has always been that you guys have like concierge support. So expect to see more and more questions about all this stuff in our joint Slack channel So appreciate that. And I know you guys are closed off to the public. You can't just go and sign up, but is there any place that people can find you or that you would want to direct people from this conversation?
I mean, we like being low profile for a couple of reasons. First off, we don't want Google and Microsoft to, flag our whirlpool so easily, but also every customer on Bison has their own IPs and setup, and essentially every customer is their own sequencer. So it makes it much harder to be shut down. Another reason why we're not a tool for the masses is because when people do a little bit of research to find us, that immediately tells us that they are a good fit because they're already going through deliverability issues and they're spending some time to learn what's working or not, and then they at some point find us. And we like that funnel. It just brings the right customers. So if you are trying to test something that you will own in terms of fingerprint, so that's why we try to build here a fingerprint for every person. Then you can go to emailbison.com, book a demo with us, and then we can see if there is mutual fit. But if you're new to cold email, I recommend you trying a sequencer that everyone else is using.
Yeah, +5, instantly, Smartly, take your pick.
Great tools.
Yeah, you'll have a good time. I personally switched off of Smartly, and I think I was one of the first 12 or 15 people to talk to Cody at all, the founder. And yeah, haven't looked back. I haven't looked back. It's just been the one thing I look for in a software provider is peace of mind. And one of the things that has always been scary for me, look, as this conversation has shown everyone, there are about 100 freaking variables that go into being able to deliver your emails and actually get your offer in front of people and actually have email function as a private ads network, which is what everyone wants it to be. A cheaper way to get their ad in front of people, basically. The last thing I want to worry about is basically these three things. My validator. So I always just stick with the tried and true million verifier. I'll never change. There's no point. And I never want to have to worry about my sequencer. So for me, when a sequencer is constantly rolling out new updates, new features, all these new shiny things while letting old things break, that was my red flag. And Email Bison is much more methodical. Like every time a new release is rolling out, it's like, hey, we're looking for a handful of beta testers to try it on this one small part or just one workspace, right? And for me, that's been the best part. I always just want peace of mind.
Yeah, I appreciate it. We're definitely not a tool for the masses, and we will never try to be. And that's why we work in perfect harmony with our competitors, where every time we had a call with a multi-million-dollar company very recently. Actually, I can say remote.com. I think that they're making billions. They wanted like the 300 SDRs to send cold emails with Email Bison, and we told them possible because your SDRs, they have a fundamental issue with deliverability. It's not just by switching from outreach.com to Email Bison, you will solve your problem. So we suggest them to start with Instantly, Smartly, or Ample Market, or any of those tools. They didn't like that response. I think they are not used to being told no, I guess. Like, we'd love to have their logo on their money, sure, but I already promised my other customers to protect the whirlpool. And if I start letting people like that into the whirlpool, they're going to start burning it. And ultimately, their domains and accounts will burn as well because they haven't solved the fundamental issue. So I usually tell those people, look, you have two options. You train your team, and then at the same time, you use a sequencer for the masses, and then you will start seeing improvements. And in maybe a year's time, we can talk again and we'll love to do business together. Or you hire an agency or a GTM consultant like Mitchell, and he will help you find success.
I like that. All right, Philippe, thank you so much for this conversation. Informative for me as well, even as someone who's in the nitty gritty day in day with deliverability. And yeah, check out Philippe on LinkedIn, shoot him a DM if you guys want to learn more about Email Bison, and check out my video on how to make lead magnets next, since it's endorsed here by Philippe.
It was beautiful. Yeah.